Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn Starks. I'm an Assistant Dean of Admissions. I'm so stoked to be answering your questions here today. Please feel free to send those, again, like Tom said, through the Q&A feature. We're really excited to answer those. And I'll pass it off to my colleague, Kat.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kat Bruno. I'm also an assistant dean with the office. I've been here for about 4 years and also happy to answer your questions. I'll be one of the folks who are answering questions on the back end. We'll have a couple of live presenters and then a couple of folks who are just trying to quickly get through as many questions as possible. So I'm happy to be here and thanks for showing up. Pass to Joel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Hart. I'm the Senior Associate Dean of Admissions and Director of Operations at Pomona. I have been at the college now. This is my 11th year. So probably most of your questions I've seen at least once somewhere along the way, maybe not. And I will be on the back end sort of typing and helping answer things and then also passing up questions to Tom and Carolyn. So and I will pass the baton finally to my good colleague, Ariana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ariana Gonzalez-Bonias. I'm an admissions officer here at Pomona College. Thank you for joining us. You won't be seeing my lovely face. You'll see others instead. But I will be answering your questions on the back end as well. And we might not be able to get to all of your questions since there are a lot of you, just as a little bit of a disclaimer, but we're going to try to get to as many as possible. And a lot of you have similar questions, so we might group them together as well. But with that, good luck.
So you take it away, Tom.
As we said, no PowerPoint. So we're going to submit things, and yes, definitely keep them coming. So one of the first ones that I think is good to kind of clarify and just put out there right from the beginning is the question from Joshua, which is, my teacher is unable to submit rec letters through Naviance or Common App. Is there a possibility he can send it to an email, and if so, which one? Yes. So we know that sometimes there are system errors from, one school to the other, from one institution to another. So if all else fails and, your school or whoever you're working with to try and submit additional documents for your application isn't able to through the normal system, they can always email things to admissions@pomona.edu. And that, once again, that is admissions@pomona.edu. That email is checked by all of our staff, and we have a very sophisticated system where either the territory manager, so for example, myself, as someone who reads applications for Washington State, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, anytime students email me with questions from that area, it gets redirected to my account. Or if it's for documents and processing and operations, our wonderful operations queen, Donna Pock, who has been at the college for so many years, and actually just announced that she's retiring very soon. So this is our very last cycle with her, and we're very excited to keep her expertise on. But she basically scans and uploads documents, transcripts, recommendations, anything to every student's file, as well as all of our administrative assistants and staff. So no matter who it is, whether it's Donna or someone else, the admissions@pomona.edu account is the one to send if you ever need documents sent in. And another thing to clarify, we get this question a lot, is it okay if these documents arrive after the application deadline? And the answer is yes. That is never something that we are chasing people or disqualifying people from admission if they don't get every single document in by the January 8th deadline. That is when your application has to be handed in. So whether that's the common application, QuestBridge, or your QuestBridge rollover application, whatever it may be, coalition application, that is the only document that technically needs to be submitted by that January 8th deadline. So yeah, we know that people are on holiday break, they might not be checking their email regularly. So hopefully that kind of, qualms that concern. So yeah, email it to us if you can't send it in through Naviance or whatever system, and it doesn't have to be in right by that deadline.
Yes. Okay. So the next question that I see is, Adam's here. Adam, hello. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Sorry, everyone. I had the world's longest Zoom update. But my name is Adam Sapp, Assistant Vice President and Director of Admission here at Pomona. I changed my background for the snowiest mountain that I could find because we're getting some precipitation here in Southern California, which is kind of nice. And it's a little chilly. It actually feels kind of wintry. It's really great to be with you.
Okay, so the next question that I see is something, let me open it up. How should we write the why this college essay? Should we focus more on why we are a perfect match for the college or why the college is a perfect match for us? So at Pomona, we actually don't have a why this essay. So you are actually prompted to write about diversity and inclusion, a time where you were dealing with conflict, some personality traits, and all of those things. If you would literally just Google Pomona College essay prompts, you can see all of those. So we actually don't have a why Pomona essay. Through those different essay prompts that we have, we obviously would love to see you talk about classes or courses that you are interested or excited to take if that's something that you've done that research. By no means am I saying go out and do all of this research and kind of name drop different professors, because that's not necessarily going to make you a more exciting candidate for admission. So you actually don't have to answer that question.
Okay. So in like a rotation where, as you can see, we have lots of questions in the Q&A box. So we're kind of going in a cycle where myself, you, and Carolyn will grab a question that we think could be good for the whole group to hear about, and then we'll present on it. So I'll let you go and dig through the questions, and I'll go and answer one right now. So let me just kind of go. I'm getting a lot of questions about arts supplements and portfolios. So I'm going to answer that because I've seen very many people are asking about that. So that is an optional part of the application at Pomona College. You do not have to submit a arts or music supplement. Even if you're interested in majoring in those subjects, this is a completely optional part of our process that is up to you as to whether or not you want to submit it. In terms of, people are asking, can it weaken an application? Can it hurt it? These supplements really can only help you and not hurt you. There's never been a case in now my fourth cycle reading applications where a supplement was so egregiously bad that they were like, no, we can't take this person. Really, the way that it's utilized in our process is, for us in admissions, we are not experts in music, dance, theater, the like. We have very strong opinions about our tastes in music and these different things, and I happen to think I have some bops that just are undeniably amazing, but I am not the one judging the quality of your music talent, very much to your benefit. And the way that it kind of works is the faculty and staff who run those departments will review these supplements and send us back notes and ratings. And for students who have very high demonstrated talent in the eyes of those professors, whether that's for the oboe or an amazing dancer or someone who is a great thespian, like they'll send that to us in admissions and be like, hey, this student would be a really valuable addition to our campus community and contribute a lot in terms of, adding to the fabric of being a residential community and being involved in, an orchestra or in some kind of ensemble. That is kind of where the supplement may help a student. Keep in mind, though, that our students some of them are artists, some of them are interested in the arts, but we have students who are athletes. We have students who write for the newspaper. We have students who are involved in lots of other clubs and organizations. And Pomona is a liberal arts college, but as you may or may not know, hopefully you know, that doesn't mean that everyone is super into the arts or has documented arts talent. This is purely an optional thing for you to demonstrate that talent to our campus, but it is never something that will hurt your application by any means. In terms of how you can do this supplement, if you just kind of look up on our admissions website, you'll be able to see that it's available through something called Slide Room, and that there will be stipulations and kind of little descriptions that are written by the departments as to what you should be submitting for that particular supplement, whether it's certain types of art pieces or certain a certain length of music that you're playing or anything like that. Those will all be really ironed out and clarified in those written blurbs, so that way you know exactly what to submit. But again, this is completely optional and is only something that if you feel like this is a talent that you bring to campus and you want to share it with the Pomona community, you're welcome to do that, but don't feel pressured or feel like you have to pick up the viola today and master it in 5 days, because that is not time that's being worth spent for you.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. I will move us a different direction because I'm picking up some vibes here about financial aid questions. So a couple of different audiences asking this. Let me just sort of go through as I was reading them. The first one is that if you are undocumented or documented, is there a separate financial aid deadline and process? There is a DREAM application on our website. So obviously, undocumented students cannot fill out the free application for federal student aid. We understand that. You can go online. There are specific instructions on the financial aid website for undocumented students to be able to complete that information safely. There is also a way for you to speak to a counselor after you are admitted and you have questions about your financial aid package. We assign financial aid counselors so that you can talk through some of the ins and outs about financial aid for undocumented students at Pomona. But to be very clear, we are still reading You Need Blind. We meet 100% of demonstrated need. We do so with no loans. And as long as you continue to demonstrate need, we will, of course, meet that for all 4 years at Pomona. So there is a slightly different process, but there is not for financial aid, but there's not a different process for admissions. We're welcoming to undocumented and documented students. We actively encourage them to apply. We have a very strong DACA and undoc community here. We have mentorship programs available through them for those students through the college, both at Pomona and also within the wider Claremont Colleges. So please know that you are entering a safe space here when it comes to your work with admissions. The second group that I'm seeing some questions with is international students who I'm seeing from a couple of different places. India, looks like perhaps Canada as well. The process for international students is a little different. So let me just address that quickly. We are need aware for international students living outside of the United States. So if you are living outside of the U.S. and you are not a U.S. citizen, we are need aware. What that means, practically speaking, is that in admissions committee, we do take a look at how much financial aid you need. And we compare that to how much our financial aid budget is. And we do make some decisions regarding who is most admissible with regard to at the end of the process, with regard to the class, based on financial circumstances. That's what it means to be need blind. That is the technical definition of need blind. I want to add two caveats. The first is, actually, when you look compared to our peers, Pomona's financial aid, the amount of financial aid available for international students is pretty large. We give out significant amounts of financial aid, both compared to our peers in Claremont and to our peers nationally in other top liberal arts schools. 45% of students at Pomona, international students at Pomona, are on financial aid. So that really is a big number. We also apply the same financial aid practices in terms of packaging. We meet 100% of need. We do so with no loans. And if you continue to demonstrate need, you can expect that your need will be met for the full years, for the full 4 years. There is one exception, and I want to be really clear with international students. In order to qualify for aid for any of the years you're at Pomona, you must apply for aid at the time you apply to Pomona. Okay, so if your family feels that they can make it for 1 year, and you're going to apply without seeking any aid in your first year, but you're going to need aid in years 2, 3, and 4 in order to complete Pomona, you should apply for aid in the first year. That allows you to be eligible to apply for aid in subsequent years. So I just want to be really clear about that. There are some requesting fee waivers internationally. Yes, we have a robust fee waiver approval process. We're happy to process those fee waivers as well. And then the other questions that are getting a little more specific really should be directed to the financial aid office. I wanted to keep it at the policy level for those two groups. If you have other questions, please put them in the chat, but I'll hand it over to Carolyn.
Yes, thanks, Adam. So I've seen some questions about interviews, about the QuestBridge application, and about the POP program. So I'm going to tackle all three of those. So students that would like to interview, unfortunately, all of our interview slots have been taken in full, so we are no longer to offer interviews. That being said, an interview, again, just like an art supplement, never ever makes or breaks your application. It's really kind of like the cherry on top of an application sundae, just us getting to see another view and understanding of who you are. There were some questions about POP. POP is Perspectives on Pomona, which is our flying program. Any student that was invited to attend POP got an interview through POP. That interview is attached to your application. POP does not give you an advantage in the admissions process. It historically has, but we have kind of changed our lens through that program and changed the way that we're kind of admitting students and encouraging students to join us through that program. So it doesn't necessarily give you a leg up, but it does make you someone that we are excited to see again, knowing that we were excited to see you as a part of that program. And then last but certainly not least, students who are looking to apply to Pomona with their QuestBridge application can do so. You do not have to fill out the Coalition application. You do not have to fill out the Common App application, but you will need to fill out our Pomona College QuestBridge choice selection form, which if you just Google Pomona College QuestBridge, it's one of the first things that pops up. It says Pomona College 2020-2021 QuestBridge rollover or something along those lines. And you fill that out and you decide which, goodness gracious, which way you want to apply to the college, early decision 2 or regular decision. And you say, I would like to use my QuestBridge application, and then you hit submit. And our technology will take your QuestBridge application and then funnel it to the correct reader for that region. So you can use your QuestBridge application. And every year there are tons and tons and tons of students that apply with their QuestBridge application without their Common App or Coalition app. And every year we admit students who have applied with their QuestBridge application and are students that we're excited to have. So you don't have to fill out the Common App or the Coalition app. Interviews are full, and if you applied to POP, your POP interview will be added to your application, and it doesn't necessarily give you a leg up in this time. And now I'll turn it over to Tom.
All right, so I'm going to take on 2 questions. One is about early decision 2 and regular decision and the fact that they're the same deadline and what does one mean and the other mean. And the other question is about the academic interest statement is what we call it. Basically, it's kind of the wording essentially is what gets you excited about your academic interest and how we utilize that in our process and what that means in terms of your candidacy for admission. So for the first question about early decision 2 and regular decision, you'll notice that the deadlines for the 2 different rounds are the same day, January 8th. Our early decision 1 deadline has already passed in November, and we're super excited. We already have some amazing into our community. And yeah, we're really looking forward to welcoming a lot more through these future rounds. So when it comes to deciding what round is best for your particular situation, there's a few things to keep in mind. The first is that if you apply early decision 2, the decision is binding. So it is not an early action round. What that means is that you will choose to attend Pomona in the fall if you are admitted to the college. And it is something that also, you know, a big commitment that comes along with early decision 2 is the financial commitment to the college. So making sure that you have a really sound awareness of your family's financial commitment to Pomona and what that would be is crucial if you're thinking to apply during this round, because you won't be able to compare other financial aid offers or, you know, scholarships from other schools. Pomona meets 100% of demonstrated need. So if you utilize the net price calculator, that is a tool that is offered on our website that will give you your financial aid package a really highly accurate estimate ahead of time. The margin of error on that calculator is very low. So there shouldn't be a lot of guessing games or kind of, you know, I'm not really sure what the real estimate will be. That tool is very accurate. So if you fill that out correctly, you should know what you're getting into when it comes to the financial commitment. And Pomona agrees to meet the difference between your family's expected contribution and the total cost of attendance. I'm like modeling here this little window. Everything in between is covered by Pomona. So I know Adam talked a lot about our financial aid policies. That's something that's really crucial to the mission of the school and allows us to bring in such a broad range of socioeconomic backgrounds to campus. So yeah, we have a great financial aid program. We're really, really lucky to have that. But definitely you want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, because Pomona doesn't offer merit-based scholarships, or there won't be kind of this, you know, possible little chunk of money that will be sent your way later on that's just purely based on your test scores or your GPA or the classes you've taken or, clubs that you're involved in. There are some schools that offer merit-based scholarships along those lines, but Pomona is not one of them. So really, that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're deciding, if you want to apply early decision two. A lot of people ask whether or not there's a big difference in acceptance rate between students who apply early and those who apply regular. At Pomona, we're actually really not that school that has, 80% of our student body coming from early rounds. We really try to have about under half of our incoming student body coming from early rounds. Early decision 1, early decision 2, QuestBridge match students, posse students. So there really isn't this drastic difference in acceptance rate or what we look for, or some people say standards between the rounds. We're still looking for students who are intellectually curious. We're still looking for students who are excited about a liberal arts college experience, who can contribute to a residential community in a tangible way and have documented that in their application. Those are all things that we still look for and value regardless of what round you choose to apply. So that's really important to remember and know that this isn't this giant, tipping of the scale if you apply early decision 2 as opposed to regular decision. You should really be choosing the round that is most comfortable for you, your situation, whatever your family's looking for. If you're not feeling ready to commit to this place, we also know right now that, we have a wonderful virtual tour and we have lots of ways to kind of experience Pomona tangibly, but we also know that for some students, they may not have seen campus, and it's just a big decision to make to commit to a school that they, are seeing sight unseen. We think it's a great choice and one that you definitely won't regret, but we know that there's just a lot of factors that come into that decision. So don't feel pressured either way to whatever round, and definitely don't make that choice based on a myth that you think you're going to get in at a higher rate through the early round as opposed to regular. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit about how those rounds work. And the second question is about academic interest statement. So as you probably have seen, if you're looking into the Pomona application, we do ask students to write a short paragraph about what excites them about their academic interests. And they have the opportunity to put down a first and a second choice major. You can also put down natural sciences. You can put down arts and humanities. You can put down social sciences. If you have an idea of kind of where your talents and your interests are lying, but they're not quite as solidified, that's completely fine. There's also an option to put down undecided, and you can write a 150-word statement about how you're excited to dabble into a lot of different things. In terms of how we utilize the academic interest statement, it is really helpful for us to get a sense for kind of where your mind's at when it comes to what type of college experience you're looking to get into and what type of intellectual community you want to be a part of. So at Pomona, it's a liberal arts college, right? So we're interested in students who are looking at their education as glass half full and thinking, hey, here are some areas that I'm really excited about now. I've done some really cool projects or research, or, I go on Wikipedia rabbit holes about insert, 48 majors. That's great to hear about, but sometimes there's going to be students who are like, I like a lot of different things and I'm excited about Pomona because I can dabble and explore a lot of them, because that's definitely what the Pomona curriculum is all about. I think another thing that we look for is students who don't have a really tunnel vision focus around, this is the only sole academic subject that I care about or interests me. Everything else is a waste of time, not worth the energy. I'll do it to get the degree and move on with my life. Like, no one usually writes a statement that sounds like that, but that's an example of what not to do, or something that basically suggests to us is not a really good fit for the academic culture of Pomona. You have until the end of your sophomore year to declare your major, and students change their mind all the time. I think it's about 80% of students at Pomona change what they want to major in. So you don't have to feel like you're locked into it, but it's helpful for us in admissions to give us a sense of what you're thinking about in terms of your interests, how you're thinking about your education. And I do like to think that we tend to like, statements that show a little bit of willingness to not, veer off the path ahead of you. If you kind of are, swayed by a course that you take early on in your college experience that kind of opens your eyes to a major you didn't consider, that type of openness and curiosity and willingness to kind of see where the wind takes you, perchance, is definitely, I think, a feature of our application process that can be pretty helpful. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Is it my turn?
I think it's Adam's turn.
Is it
Adam,
my turn? Okay, I've been typing and typing and typing.
Sorry, I talked for a long time. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, wow, 3:26. That was a long look. But hopefully, I saw a lot of questions about that, so hopefully it helped.
Sure. Yes. And another question, did we already talk about SAT optional and what that means before I jumped in? So I do see a lot of questions about that. And I just want to reiterate, I've responded to some individually, but just to remind you again about the way in which we evaluate a file, we have a holistic review process. We do require a lot of other things. This year, we are test optional, meaning SAT or ACT do not have to be submitted in order for your application to be completed. So just like an interview is optional, which we don't have those available anymore, just like an arts supplement is optional, which we talked about earlier, not everyone's going to have that. We already know not everyone is going to have an SAT or an ACT. That's completely fine. We have never really been an institution that has put a lot of emphasis, at least in the last few years, on subject tests, SAT subject tests. That continues to be true. We don't see lots of AP scores in applications. Occasionally they come in, but they're certainly not something that we're hunting for. So when we say test optional, we truly mean we are test optional. The things that I would worry about if I were you are the following: your transcript and your grades and your classes, your teacher recommendations and your writing, your extracurricular activities, and the sort of application itself that you're completing. Those are your responsibilities. If you have an SAT or ACT and you like it, you think it really represents something, adds value to your application, by all means, please submit it. If you don't have it, obviously you can't submit it. And if you have a test, an SAT or an ACT, and you're not happy with it, you actually don't think that it adds value to your application, don't submit it. That's what SAT or ACT optional, test optional means. You'll not be penalized. We are not going to hunt you down for it. We are not going to email your counselor and try to get it. It's simply not going to be in the file, and we will use all those other things that I talked about that we asked for to evaluate you. And as the director, I sit in a lot of committee meetings, and we do a lot of evaluation and decision-making in committee. And for those students who don't have a test, not once this year did I hear the question, I wonder what their testing would have been. I wonder what the ACT might have been if they could have submitted it. If only the student had submitted an SAT. Never was that question asked. We used what we had. We evaluated what was in the file, and we really truly meant that the test optional meant test optional. So this is a choice policy. You have the choice, and there's no penalty for not submitting it. I want to be really clear about that. So that should take care of quite a few. That's true for international students as well as for U.S. domestic students. I want to be clear about that too. Carolyn?
Yes. So I've seen a couple of questions about, should I choose Pomona or Claremont McKenna, or should I choose Pitzer, or what are the other Claremont colleges like? So what is so beautiful about the Claremont colleges is you will graduate from one of these institutions, because we are completely separate institutions, being that we have 5 different presidents and 5 different boards of trustees, 5 different admissions offices, different dining halls, different residence halls. But at the end of the day, you really will be a student of the colleges at large, even though you will graduate with 1 degree or maybe 2 degrees, depending on your double major, from the institution that you end up attending. So every one of the institutions except for Pomona has a kind of niche pedagogy that came from when they were founded. Pomona was founded in 1887, and we were founded to be a standalone institution. So we're kind of the jack of all trades. But in the 19-teens, President James Blaisdell was pushed to turn Pomona into a university because there was just this boom of people. And he said, you know what, I understand that there is a need to educate more students, but we really love what happens in a small liberal arts college classroom. So I'm going to follow Cambridge and Oxford and found 10 colleges over 100 years, and each institution will have whatever they need for that decade that they were founded in. So Scripps College was founded in the 1920s. It is an all-women's college, so young people that identify as women will be able to be admitted and go to that institution. They used to be heavily leaning in the humanities and the arts, but they have since grown to offer over 30 different majors and minors. And they actually have a very rigorous curriculum called their core, which they have to take over the course of 3 semesters that kind of teaches them how to kind of basically like tear down patriarchy, which is kind of cool. Then in the 1940s, Claremont Men's College was founded, and it was founded for young men coming back from the war. And they needed to have a pre-professional approach to their education. And so Claremont McKenna College, or Claremont Men's College, was founded. Claremont changed the name to Claremont McKenna, but they have a very pre-professional approach to education. Their top majors are PPE, politics, philosophy, economics, international relations, economics on its own, politics on its own, and it kind of feels like a mini Washington, D.C. sometimes. They have this really cool speaking series called the Athenaeum, where they have different prominent leaders from all over different political spheres and ideologies come and speak. And so there's a lot of discourse around just like in this pre-professional education. Then in the 1950s, Harvey College was founded because there was a need to educate STEM majors and give them an opportunity to have a liberal arts foundation, but be focused on the STEM programs. And then last but certainly not least, Pitzer College was founded in the 1960s amongst civil rights and social justice and the push to be more environmentally friendly. Every single one of these institutions are small liberal arts colleges, and you will get a phenomenal education at any one of them. But because of when they were founded, they have these different, again, feelings about them. And to be completely honest, I think all small liberal arts colleges are very similar in the sense that you're going to get to know your professors, they're going to be invested in you, they're really caring about you. When it comes to Claremont Colleges, you just have to figure out what you want your kind of social, extracurricular student body to look like. Because again, the professors at all these schools are phenomenal. The financial aid at all of these schools is also phenomenal. And you're going to be able to take classes at these different colleges. At Pomona, you can take up to 40% of your classes on another college campus. So again, knowing that you'll be able to pick and choose, you just have to figure out which school fits you best. And I think the best way to get that understanding is reach out to a couple of students. All of our schools have different tour guides and students that work in the admissions offices, and say, hey, can I just chat with you for a second? And students are your greatest resource because they are actual products of these institutions, and they'll be able to answer those questions for you. So talk to a current student at these different schools that you're thinking about, see which one kind of fits your vibe, fits your interest, is someone that you're like, oh, I really want to be like them when I grow up. That might be the school for you. But when it comes down to picking a major, I saw a student interested in like psychology at CMC versus psychology at Pomona. It's going to be very, very similar. So just knowing that it's really about what you're wanting your outside of the classroom experience to kind of be like is what you can expect to be the differentiation there. Tom?
We love the Consortium. I am such a huge fan of it. It's so cool, and it's really not hyped up. Like, I think people think that we're making it up. Like, it's really real. You really do collaborate a lot. You eat at the other dining halls. Like, we're friends with the admissions officers at the other schools. We're not, like, in competition, like, trying to, like, pawn away students from each other. So, like, we love the Consortium. You can love all the schools and be drawn to many of them because, you know, the idea of it in general is very cool.
Sorry, Tom. If you apply to one of our schools, like if you apply to Pomona and CMC, we will never know. We are not allowed to share that information. It's not like, oh, like one of my favorite students didn't even know they went to Harvey Mudd until I was in the dining hall, and I was like, oh my God, Ian, I didn't know you were in Claremont. Why didn't you come say hi? He's like, I thought I hurt your feelings. I was like, you broke my heart, but I'm so happy you're at the Consortium. So again. Yeah.
And it happens all the time, like vice versa as well. Like, well, you know, our friends at Pitzer, like they'll find out like that, you know, a student that they were talking with enrolled at Pomona. So yeah, it's all one love. So I've seen a lot of questions about the Helen Keller supplemental essay prompt about being a hero or an honest worker. So here's my take on this prompt. I think really, if you look at the quote, what we're really trying to get at is that there is not one type of contribution to a community that is superlative over another. And I think that's a really important thing for you to remember as an applicant, that As I mentioned before, we have artists at Pomona. We have students who are talented in journalism and writing and want to write for the Student Life newspaper. We have students who are part of mock trial. We have athletes. We have students who are really involved in a cultural affinity group or in, bridging solidarity with a part of their identity. And building relationships and mentorship with other folks. Those are all equally valid ways to contribute to a community. And I think what we're really trying to get at from this prompt is, where do you see yourself fitting into that community fabric? And I think a lot of times in our culture in the US, there is this tendency to feel like you need to be the leader of every single thing and like be the hero all the time. And for many of you, like that might be a really big part of your personality and kind of who you are. And you're the student in your school that's a mover and a shaker, and like you're doing things and you're making these high areas of impact. But maybe you're someone who like I've read so many essays from students who are like, I tried out theater in ninth grade and I realized that like being in front of the stage was not my shindig. But I've really found a community for myself in doing backstage work and stage managing or lights or costumes. And now I really get so much pride out of helping bring these shows to life, and like having the people who are comfortable being that kind of, forward facing star of the show. I love knowing that like I can get them to that place and like contribute as an honest worker behind the scenes, right, to making that happen. So I think what this essay and the way that's writing is really trying to get at is that you can write this prompt about areas where you maybe made a high area of impact, but it wasn't in a big or flashy way. Maybe, and we have people in our community all the time who at Pomona, we're really big on valuing every community member's contribution. So, for example, my first year when I was watching our commencement speaker come up, and the senior or the class president was speaking about all the professors, on campus and how amazing they are, and, all the different people who make Pomona Pomona. And the population that got a standing ovation from our students was the dining staff and the facility staff, because of the tireless work that they put into keeping our campus alive and well, and in their contributions to our community that maybe don't go as noticed all the time in terms of publications and academic journals like professors, researches, right? So I think that is kind of the spirit of Pomona, is knowing that everyone is a part of this community for a reason, and whatever you contribute is a valid contribution. That can be something that is that more forward-facing hero mentality, or it can be something that is more behind the scenes, that honest worker, pushing things along and getting change made, maybe in not like the biggest or flashiest ways, but you're still making a contribution. So I think that's really kind of what we're trying to get at with this prompt. And I hope that is helpful in terms of you feeling comfortable with the ways that you genuinely feel like you can contribute in some way. In terms of how to go about it, I definitely would say, I know it's only 250 words, but I've read a lot of them so far that have just been kind of like very general and have been like, oh, both are really important. It's really helpful for you to use this part of the application to give us a window into your specific ways of contribution. So I definitely would encourage you to choose some activity, reflect on a moment in your past, in your life that you feel like is a tangible representation of an idea that you want to get across. Because, yeah, I found that reading this prompt through in the applications I've read so far, there have been a lot of answers that have been very general. And it's really good to have something I think that's a little more specific and grounded to help kind of give your application a theme and kind of give us a little bit of a sense of like your particular contribution. There was one other thing I was going to mention about that, but I think I've gone on for long enough, but hopefully that helps you with that prompt.
Thanks, Tom. I'll do some rapid fire here. Is demonstrated interest used in our application evaluations? No, we do not use demonstrated interest in our application evaluations. Quick message, we do sometimes when we defer students, so in ED2, we have the decision of admit, defer, or waitlist. We do strongly encourage our deferred students to follow up with us and write an update. I wouldn't call that demonstrated interest necessarily. I would just say it's continued interest. You've already told us you want to go to Pomona by applying early. And for students who are waitlisted, we do often expect to hear from students who are waitlisted. Again, I wouldn't call it demonstrated interest. I would call it expressing a continuation of your interest. You've already elected to remain on the wait list. Do we care about weighted or unweighted GPAs? You can report whatever you wish on the application. Your counselor will submit a transcript which will have the weighted and unweighted GPA on it. So those official GPAs will come in anyway. We don't have a preference for weighted or unweighted that you submit in the application. Put in whatever you want to put in the Common App. We will take that GPA off of your counselor's form, the SSR or the transcript anyway. And then what was the other question that I was going to answer? Oh, it was about Pomona fit and sort of what we're looking for. And I'll kind of, make some big broad strokes here. I think Tom started to get to this a little bit when he answered that previous question, but Pomona can accommodate many kinds of students. We are a broad-based liberal arts institution where students study the STEM, the natural sciences, the social sciences, the arts and humanities, and they do so often in an interdisciplinary way. We are global with about 12% of our students international from outside the U.S. We are national with our students from all 50 states, including Guam and Puerto Rico and the Marianas Islands. So many different places our students come from, so many backgrounds and experiences. First-generation students, students who identify as U.S. domestic, students of color, students who might identify as differently abled or part of the LGBT community. There's so many ways to think about a point of view. And when I am often asked this question, what is the best fit for Pomona? I often say, we like students with a point of view. Do you have something to say to the world? Do you have something to do in the world? Do you have a desire to learn around people who are different and use that difference as a way to catapult yourself into new kinds of learning? If that's you, then you're probably a good fit for Pomona. And yes, take a look at our majors list. Yes, take a look at the website and watch the videos. Make sure you do your research. But the reality is we can be a great fit for many kinds of smart, bright young people. Carolyn?
Thanks, Adam. So I've seen a couple of questions around intellectual curiosity and athletic life. So, student life at Pomona is so much fun. I think I've been answering a lot of the student life questions. Sorry, Tom and Adam. I know those are more fun ones to answer. So at Pomona, the majority of our students, I would say, are probably over-involved through our turf dinner, which happens at the beginning of every academic year. It's where all clubs and organizations from Pomona, CMC, Pitzer, Harvey Mudd, all Scripps, they all come out and basically are like, please join our club. This is what is available. And a lot of the time, first years come in and sign up for everything, and then they have an opportunity to be like, I don't know if I can do all of this and be a good student and sleep all at the same time. So they figure out what they're going to do and kind of figure out how they're going to get involved. And again, being able to be involved in clubs and organizations on the other Claremont Colleges campus is absolutely something that you can do, and vice versa. In terms of athletics on our campus, if you would like to be on our varsity athletics team, you will have to try out if you have not already had an opportunity to have a conversation with one of our coaches where you are being a recruited athlete. But if you don't make the team, we have a ton of intramural and club sports that you can take advantage of. I know that club inner tube water polo is definitely a favorite that happens during the spring when it's nice and warm and you're basically playing water polo in inner tube. So getting involved in athletic life is definitely something that you can do on our campus. And it doesn't have to necessarily you can join a Harvey Mudd team that's going to float your boat. And then intellectual curiosity. So what we mean by intellectual curiosity is what makes you so excited that you want to go to the library and check out all the books on that subject. We want to know what kind of makes you tick and is going to be something that you might want to do research on when you come to Pomona, or it's something that just now sparked your interest in what you plan on doing research or what you've done in the past. So knowing that you are a multifaceted, multi-interested young person, we know that we're going to ask you what is your intended major, but you don't have to know exactly what you're going to do with that after your time at Pomona, or even while you're at Pomona. You can talk about what you're excited to do. So how you are able to engage with the academy, be excited to engage with the academy, and potentially see yourself in the academy. That's what we mean by intellectual curiosity. So what's going to, again, make you tick and go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole. Even though Wikipedia is not an accredited source, you can start there. So that's kind of what we're talking about when it comes to intellectual curiosity. And now, Tom.
Okay. There was one question from a student about whether or not we factor in where you come from, like in terms of your geography, into our admissions decisions. So that is something that we do consider. As with, you may have heard the term holistic review so far in this webinar or other sessions you've been a part of. But we're building a community. The Pomona that we are proud to represent has students that come from all over the globe, rural farm towns in Nebraska, down, right in Manhattan, the biggest city in the world, right? Or not the biggest city in the world. There's definitely cities that are bigger, but one of the biggest cities in the world. And we have students who are coming from lots of different states, lots of different racial and ethnic backgrounds, religious traditions or no religion at all, different gender, sexual identities. So that's a big part of what Pomona is all about, and something that definitely is a huge part of the fabric of what it means to be a Pomona student. So geographic diversity is one component of that. So definitely we will consider, where you come from as a factor in the admissions conversation. So yeah, that's definitely something that you'll notice for not just Pomona. That's something that most highly selective schools are going to be looking at when they're crafting a residential community, is ensuring that different perspectives and interests and representation is present in that community, because that makes the more transformative education that you get out of conversations in class and conversations, at 2 a.m. in your hallway with your sponsor group, like, they're more beneficial to you in the long run when you have people who are different than you, have different interests, have different lived experiences, and you'll leave Pomona being so much more prepared to take on the world and whatever challenges come your way, with the benefit of having a community that looks like that. So that's definitely a huge part of what we're all about, and we're really proud of it. Another thing that I saw in terms of questions that I thought was a good general one, now I'm forgetting what it was, so maybe I'll go on to Adam while I look for it.
Alrighty. We have a couple of questions here about pandemic extracurricular activities and how things shifted. So yes, we know that for many of you, life changed quite a bit. You may have taken on extra responsibilities at home with siblings or parents. You may have taken on care of family members or responsibilities of other folks living in your household who couldn't do things due to COVID, or you just had to do them because that's the way life worked. And we really understand that. And we want you to feel free to add those extracurricular activities, we're happy to call them that, to your resume on the Common Application. You should get credit for the time that you've served your family. You should get credit for the time that you've been that big brother in a difficult circumstance in the last 4 months. If you have babysat your siblings a little more, or you have done a lot of extra things around the house to make sure that everything's working and in proper order, because of course we know this is in addition to going to school. This is in addition to doing your homework. This is probably in addition to other extracurriculars, some of which may have continued from high school. We also know that not all extracurriculars did continue. We are expecting students to have probably dropped some sports because seasons were canceled. We're expecting some theater folks to have not been able to do the performances or have the performances because all the time they spent practicing was for a spring musical that got canceled, right? So we do see and understand that all that's going to happen. So I really want to make sure that that's very clear. And then one of the other questions that I saw there was around sort of, I'm from a certain state or certain region, and I don't see that that's represented a lot at Pomona. What do I do? Well, let me just say, we want to be a national institution. We all represent what we will call territory managers in admissions. So all the admissions offices are territory managers. We have different regions. So I would encourage you to reach out to your regional officer. This is all on the website. I point you to the website. If you're from Seattle, you should probably be emailing Tom. If you're from Honolulu or Hong Kong, you should be emailing me. If you're from Miami or Tuscaloosa, you should probably be emailing Carolyn. These are the kinds of things we're interested in as we get to know you and you get to know us. Any kinds of questions that might be regional or specific, you should feel free to direct to your regional admissions officer. Carolyn?
Yes. So I've seen some questions, again, piggybacking on the pandemic and how COVID-19 may be affecting students. We, like Adam said, recognize that this is been a wild, hectic year for everyone. And we want to take you in the context of where you're coming from. So recognizing that some of you may be in different financial situations because of this, might have, again, more familiar responsibilities. You may have, just like life, punching you in the gut. Please, 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 please use the section on the applications. I don't know if the QuestBridge application had this, but I do know that the Common application, and I believe the Coalition application has it, sections where you can say how COVID has affected you and affected your grades and affected just like your mental health, anything that has, really just kind of been something that is affecting you. So knowing that, please do not write your personal statement about COVID. I think you would be doing yourself a massive disservice if you're talking about COVID in your application when there's a section in the application that allows you to do that. We want you to be the curious, exciting, potentially athletic or religious or whatever you decide to write about. That's what we're excited to read about in your application. So please use that section of the application. When it comes to admitting students and kind of recognizing that we had a lot of first years defer enrollment, we are really thinking very, very thoughtfully about this. And our senior team, Joel, Adam, other members of the senior team have come up with a plan to continue to admit and hopefully enroll roughly the same number of students that we normally do, and we will not be leaning heavily on our wait list. So we're kind of taking that yield model out of the perspective of what we're doing this year. And I don't know if, Adam, you want to speak to this a little bit more, if you think I answered it or not, but that's basically the only things that we're doing when it comes to recognizing that we have more defers.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely accurate. And, the thing to take away here is we're trying hard to make sure the class of 2025 has as normal of an application year as possible. You all have had a tough year. And we know that. We recognize that. We are right there with you. We know a whole lot of things in your senior year have not gone the way. In fact, in your junior year, too, have not gone the way that you wanted them to. So we want to try at Pomona to make this application process feel as normal as possible and to remove some of the barriers that we know that students have. For example, that's why we went test optional. That's why we've been pretty free giving out fee waivers. We've done some things we hope that reduce barriers, but we certainly don't want the defers to be weighing on your mind as if all of a sudden we're going to swoop in and take out spots. That is not our plan.
That's a great, and actually I remember the question I was going to bring up from the previous team, and it's actually very much, I think, along these lines. There's been a couple of questions about mental health on campus and whether or not it is something that is suggested to speak about in your application, Another person asked a question about, is it okay to be vulnerable in your application? I definitely think that this, is a judgment call that you should really run by other people in your life. In general, though, I think that more people should be more vulnerable with this application and be more authentic. I think a lot of times people think that they have to put on this picture that everything's fine and great and I'm really killing the game and like nothing's knocking me down. That's not real. No matter how smart you are or how great your GPA is, like we all have areas where we failed. We all have areas that have really gotten us down and we've had to pick ourselves back off our feet. And we don't expect you to be a robot and someone that has never had these types of challenges or hasn't had times in their life where they've been overwhelmed or they've had anxiety or, they're struggling with something. Like that is something that our students actually have been really vocal about in terms of increasing mental health awareness and advocacy and having students be more open about, times where they're not feeling their best and being more open about discussing things like that because they have been very taboo for a very long time in our society. So I think, in your application, you definitely should feel comfortable with admitting moments where you've had a tough time, where you're going through something that does rely on others for support and guidance and people to help pick you back up. It's okay to mention that and to be vulnerable and honest about that because definitely we admire people who are vulnerable and authentic and are willing to kind of put that all out on the table. I think sometimes there can be oversharing, I think sometimes that can happen in college applications. So I think that's definitely something to be aware of, and to know that, we are not mental health counselors who are reading these applications. So certain things that you disclose, like those might be conversations that are more appropriate for someone who is trained, in managing those. But definitely I would say that we do admire students who are raw and authentic and vulnerable, and I think there definitely should be more room for that in college admissions, because people think that there's no space for that, and there absolutely is.
All right. Well, I kind of jumped in over Carolyn, so I'll just take a really quick one here. And this is about sort of, is there some kind of magic around major selection? So should I be, strategic with my major selection? We're looking for students who really are communicating to us honestly what it is they want to study, or that they are undecided. And I said that very specifically. Some students know what they want to study. They are looking at a liberal arts college because they want to major in physics, but they also want to double major in dance, and they don't want to give up either because they're both artistic and they're scientific. Put down physics and dance. That's totally fine. Other students are really undecided, and they're applying to a liberal arts college because they want to help that institution. They want to use that institution to figure out what they want to do. That's also okay. So don't overthink it. Read through the major list. Don't think about strategy. Think about honesty. Don't think about what we want. Think about what you want. And those are the two guiding questions around how do I pick a major or not, because we love our undecided kids. Those are great too. Don't feel like you have to pick something. And then select two options, which we give you, and move on to the rest of the application. That would be my advice there. Carolyn?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Adam was just saying, Tom and I are lucky enough to oversee the tour guide program, and it's so funny to hear these tour guides who are now juniors and seniors and recent grads and say, yeah, I came into Pomona and I was going to be a bio major, and now I'm a CLSA major. And you're like, isn't that, look at God. It's just really, really cool to see how a small liberal arts college like Pomona will give you the opportunity to genuinely be intellectually curious. And I think we're coming up to the end of our session. And so I'm just going to leave you young people with some advice, and hopefully that will allow you to be excited and feel some sigh of relief. Know that we at Pomona genuinely care about you, which is one of the reasons why Adam said we went test optional, we pushed back our deadline, and we want you to know that we're people on the other side of your application, and this is a very human process. And so we're going to, again, look at you in the context of where you're coming from. We also want you to know that at Pomona, if you are not admitted, that by no means has any say or judgment on who you are or your worth. We want you to know that the majority of people who apply to Pomona are not admitted, and they are able to go off and do really great things. And no matter where you go, what you invest in your collegiate experience is what you're going to get out of it. So give it your all. Be excited about going to college. We want you to take a break from this cram session that you're currently in, and also go outside and take a breather, and just, again, recognize that this world is wild and hectic right now, and we want you to be as kind to yourself as possible. And we look forward to answering more questions. I know that we didn't get to all of them, so feel free to email any one of us who are on the panel today, but also your regional officer, and know that we are excited to read your applications, because it's really cool to see you young people and then get to meet you later in life if you end up being a SAGEN. So the last thing that I will say before we sign off is, I wish I had the clap emojis, and we were just talking about how we wish we had reactions, because I wanted to react to both Adam and Carolyn. But I will also say there were a few questions. These webinars, and this one was particularly about applying to Pomona and last minute application questions. So as you saw, we spent the bulk of our time spent answering those particular questions.
We will be offering though live virtual tours for the winter break with our lovely winterns. So if you want to ask and engage with current students and see our campus virtually, the tour is awesome. The students are so helpful, and they can speak a lot more to like, talking about those favorite clubs and organizations and traditions. And I know a lot of people were asking questions around that. Please feel free to go to visit.pomona tours and to get a more hip estimate of what life is like at Pomona as opposed to our application-y advice. Virtual.pomona.edu. Also visit.pomona.edu. They all tend to work. So thank you, Joel. And yes, we hope you enjoyed, and we wish you the best of luck. We will be offering another one of these last-minute application cram webinars, I think on January 4th or somewhere around those lines. So if you want 5th,
yeah.
Great. Thank you to those behind the scenes for chiming in for correct specifics. But yes, feel free to see us at other sessions. And again, best of luck with everything and enjoy the rest of your holidays.